Hi everyone, hi there, welcome. So we're just going to give it a minute or two for people to join in and kind of work out this is starting and can log on. And just while we're waiting, do feel free to say hi in the chat and also let me know where you're joining from. Nice to know where you are. I'm based here in London in the UK. That's where I'm joining from today. Christian, hey, welcome. Yeah, hi, welcome. Welcome people who are joining on, logging on. Welcome, my name's Mark, and we're going to be just starting in a couple of minutes, just letting people join in. We're going to be doing a little talk. We'll do a little talk about a topic in Zen. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about a particular koan, which we'll unpack in a minute. We'll talk about some Zen wisdom, I suppose, and then we'll finish with about a 15-minute meditation at the end, meditation practice. Great. Well, I hope it's as warm where you are as it is here. Here in London today it's very warm. We've gone back another warm patch. Hot weather coming through, yeah. So, yeah, hi. So, welcome. Do feel free, as I said before, do feel free to just say hi in the chat and we'll get going. So, just to say a little bit about myself, my name's Mark, and you're very welcome to join today. We're going to be doing a short Zen talk and then followed by meditation practice. I've been practicing Zen for, coming on to, it's between 15 and 20 years, somewhere around that. I've been teaching for the last 5 or 6 years. In our group here, we have a Zen group based in London, here in the UK, and we're pretty worldwide these days, people joining from all over the place on our online platform. And we've been offering these talks here on Zen on the Insight Timer for the last couple of months. Been doing just a short talk about various different dimensions and aspects of Zen practice. So just to start off then, Zen is a school of Buddhism, comes from Japan. And before Japan, Zen really originated as Buddhism arrived in China. And there was a particular strand of Buddhist practice and teaching, which then kind of evolved over the years into what we now know as Zen. So it's got a very Chinese flavour, and then it ended up in Japan, and the Japanese were very good at kind of preserving and expanding on some of the stuff that was done in China. Now, of course, it's making its way from Japan over to the West. So we have this thread, this flow of Buddhist teaching from the original time of the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, across East Asia, and now transmitting, converting its way over to us here in the West. So, what I'd like to talk about today took its inspiration from making bread, which is something I like to do here. Actually, I do it quite regularly, making bread, and thinking about what it means to bring the dough together. I was working with this, and you pour in all the flour and the water and maybe a few seeds and a few bits and pieces, and you start working the dough together, and it's very powdery and watery to begin with, and then it becomes very sticky, and then you keep on working it together, and it needs quite a bit of time and work with the hands to bring it all together. So it needs a consistency and a sort of effort, and then an understanding that you need to keep going, and eventually it will start to come into a nice well-formed dough. And it was just kind of making me think that sometimes when we start meditating, some bits can come together quite quickly. Many people find when they start meditation practice, one of the first things they find is they sleep better. For many people, sleep is a bit of an issue, being able to get to sleep and then also being able to stay asleep. And it's a lot to do with the wearing of the mind, busy mind, stressed out, thinking about worries and to-do lists and things. So one of the things that meditation shows us is how to stay more present right here. And if we're present with whatever we're doing, then we're able to do it more focused, more in the moment. And of course that helps when we're falling asleep and also staying asleep. People find that there are levels of attention and concentration quite quickly start to build. They're able to stay more concentrated, more focused, more here, present. And that's of course what meditation practice is. It's practicing the art of staying focused. And then we become a little bit more sensitive to what's going on in the body, what's going on in the mind. So we become more aware, more sensitive, more tuned in to different sensations that are going on, more subtle sensations, and also thoughts and emotions and, ideas and things, and just being kind of more aware of how much thinking we do and what kind of thoughts. So these are the things that when we're working with the dough in this analogy, maybe they start to come together quite quickly. But there are other sides to our Zen practice, to our meditation practice, which take quite some time to even realize that we have, let alone bringing together, bringing in alignment, working with, letting go. And that's what brings us to this particular koan that I wanted to talk about today. So a koan is a tool, and it's been very, very successfully used in Zen practice over the centuries. It's basically developed in Zen and then used in Zen to help people to see more of the truth. And a koan literally means a precedent. So that's a Japanese word, and it literally means precedent. So it's kind of like a vignette, story, a question sometimes, taken from a moment in the past where something happened to make the student see part of the truth. So this is where it's like a precedent of enlightenment, if you like, or awakening. An example of how someone saw more of their truth, and then gets passed down this story, and we study it as a way of helping us to find our truth too. So this one is Joshu's Wash Your Bowl. A monk came to Master Joshu. Master Joshu was a Chinese monk from the early medieval times. And he was based right up there in northern China, quite in a temple quite far away from the main sort of, centre of stuff going on in China. But he was very famous and he drew a lot of people to him. He was very brilliant teacher. So anyway, so a monk turned up at his temple and asked, "I have just entered the monastery, please give me some guidance." And Joshu said, "Have you had breakfast yet?" And the monk said, "Yes, I've eaten." And then Joshu says, "Then go wash your bowl." And it's that simple. And you think, well, where's the teaching in that then? And you think, wow, that is such a simple response. Surely he could have given something a little bit more direct. But actually he gave something extremely direct and very, very to the point in his instruction. Eminently simple and very pragmatic. So the monk turns up. Probably he wasn't a beginner monk. probably had heard about Joshu and being a famous teacher, and probably had made a fairly long journey to get there. And, you turn up at the monastery and then you enter the flow of monastery life, I suppose. And he'd had this opportunity. Maybe he caught him down the corridor walking along. And he just said, Joshu, I've just come to the monastery. I've come for your famous teaching. Please give me some guidance. Give me some teaching. And Joshu says, have you had breakfast yet? What a lovely thing to say. This is this famous teacher. He's very well regarded, been practicing for decades. And it's got a monk coming into his monastery and he's asking for teaching. And the first thing Joshu asks him is, have you had breakfast? Have you been looked after? Have you eaten? Are you comfortable? He might have said, was your room comfortable? Or have you slept yet? Those kind of questions. So it's just wonderful to hear this sort of grand master offering us such a very simple and kind question. Very, almost you could see like below him to think about whether he's eaten yet or not. But here he is. Have you had breakfast yet? And the monk says, yes, I've eaten. And then Joshu gives his remarkable response. Then go and wash your bowl. There are many, many layers of meaning within this response. On the very practical, immediate level, go wash your bowl. It's like, well, I've had breakfast. That's just the next thing to do. Go and do the next thing. And of course, the monk is probably asking with the intention of getting some kind of wisdom. He's wanting to, please give me some guidance. Oh, he might say, go and do, spend the day in silence and study this sutra and then come to see me at the end of the day and tell me what you think. Something like that. Maybe he was expecting that. And Joshu just says, do the next thing. Go and wash your bowl. Extremely pragmatic. But there's more here. Because the metaphor of washing your bowl, you could see that in terms of this technical word. It's a spiritual, technical word called purification. It's actually, in English, a horrible word because it has all sorts of connotations and baggage about purifying. The fact that if we're purifying something, probably means that something is dirty. Well, in a sense, in this metaphor, we got the bowl. He's had breakfast. He's got a bowl now. It's got the dregs of his breakfast in it. And that's the bits that are left over. It's in the dough that I was kneading, to try and make the bread. As I got my hands in the bowl, got some bits coming together nicely, but there's after I've been kneading there for 5 minutes or so, there's still quite a lot of flour left in the bottom of the bowl. And how do I get that stuck in? I turn the dough over and I squish it and twist it round and squeeze it and turn it over again, and gradually more of the flour starts to get stuck and incorporated in this dough as I'm working it. And you turn it over and you keep on working it. My fingers starting to ache because it's quite hard work. I don't have one of those machines where I could just press the button and then the little thing goes round and round and winds it all together. I'd like to do it with my hands. So this is the go wash your bowl dimension of things. There's some bits left over from his breakfast, stuck in the bowl. Maybe it's Japanese like to eat rice porridge for breakfast. That's the traditional temple food. So sometimes the rice, little tiny bits of rice get stuck and they're dried out. And then they get very difficult to clean off. So the Japanese phrase for these leftover pieces of rice that's stuck in the bowl, called beto beto, means stuck, very sticky. And that's, in the spiritual terms, our practice of purification, our practice of cleaning. So yes, okay, so very quickly we get a sense of sleep might get better, we get better at attention, concentration, we become more sensitive to our internal sensations and thoughts and things. But that's just the surface. Maybe we start to realize some of the ways in which we behave, some of the ways in which we cause ourselves suffering, some of the patterns, some of the life choices that we make, some of the relationships and interactions we have in life, choices, and then we start to see, okay, there's quite a bit here to deal with. This is the cleaning dimension. The path of purification is really the path of letting go. Before that, maybe it's the seeing. Seeing clearly what we have, our stuff, you might call our shit, like all the bits that have got stuck to us as we've gone through our life. Coming to terms, like building a relationship with that stuff, not stuff that we want to just deny or get rid of or ignore. It's stuff that we have, stuff about ourselves and our pain and our histories. And then gradually we learn to let go. And that's the washing of the bowl. From a personal point of view, there were some difficult things that happened to me when I was growing up. And my response to those painful things was to basically cut off. I learnt to numb myself, to suppress the feelings and pretend that I didn't have any feelings. And as a result, I ended up holding people at a very, at a distance, at an arm's length. I wouldn't engage emotionally with people because I was worried that if I did, I would be hurt. I was trying to avoid pain, basically. That was my childish protection response, which then became a habit, became my way of being. So I would basically hide emotionally because I was worried about getting hurt. So then I started to see that as a pattern. I started to see where it came from, why it arose. But we don't always need to know why it arose or even when it arose or what it came from. We just need to see it as a pattern. This is me right now. This is what I have. I have a pattern of, getting very, very angry. I always flash into a rage. I have a pattern of spending loads of money. I have a pattern of, avoidance. I'll hide away like I did. Those are patterns that we see. They are quite often the very, very stuck pieces of rice on the bowl, or the very, very difficult to incorporate flour, as I'm trying to knead the dough. Those bits that take real effort and real consistency and practice to not just see, but then come to terms with and begin to let go. And as we see those things for what they really are, they start to release their hold over us. Those kind of behaviours, patterns, and basically the result of old suffering that are beneath the level of our consciousness, they've got a very powerful pull on us. They basically create unconscious actions. We get angry, we flash, we say something, we lash out. It's coming out of a place of unconscious habit or, deeper levels. But as soon as we see them, bring those things up into the light, we see them in our awareness, they are no longer having such a powerful hold over us. We can start to make choices about how we might want to behave differently. That is the path of coming to terms with and letting go. And here becomes one of these danger points in our practice. Don't ever think you're finished. It's possibly a bit pessimistic, but there are many, I don't know what you say, like guideposts or caution signs in the Zen literature about thinking that you are finished. Because it's a trap. We've been practicing for, 2 or 3 years. We've seen a bit of stuff and we think, God, I've really moved forwards. I think I'm done. 2 or 3 years. I've been doing this for, it's coming up to 20 years. And then more stuff comes. We see more clearly. And I suspect that after 40 years, you probably see even more, that there's still more to work with. Yeah, things don't take much of it's not quite as powerful, and maybe not quite as gross anymore. They become more and more subtle, and more like little tiny pieces. But still, there's that cleaning the bowl to be done. My teacher's teacher, who was a Japanese teacher, my teacher was an English Zen master, and he spent some time studying Japan, and the teacher he trained with, Shinzan his name was, he liked to use the image of a window that is very dirty. So it's so dirty, so thick with dirt that no light comes through. And our meditation practice is like starting to clean the window. Now you've got 2 options. You can take a cloth and just wipe the whole window over and over again. Do the whole window. Now when you've got thick layers of dirt, it takes a long while to even wear down the first few layers of that dirt, let alone start to get to the point where light comes through. But it's possible, you just keep going. Another option would be to take a corner of the window and start to scrub hard in the corner. Now you might be faster to get the light through. So yeah, because we scrub into the corner and then a chink of light comes through. And that's great, it's faster. And that light represents the light of awakening. Seeing who we really are. Seeing through the layers of delusion. The layers of pain that end up causing us to get these behavioural patterns and tendencies and start, covering up our real wholeness underneath. So we get there faster by rubbing a corner of the window and scrubbing really hard, and then suddenly, here I am. This is the light shining through, but it's only a tiny little chink of light. And then you've got to go, okay, wow, I've got the whole of the rest of the window to clean here. Actually, in terms of Zen practice, scrubbing the corner and getting a shaft of light coming through isn't actually that hard. We, in our Zen community here in the UK, we run 3-day retreats. They're very intense. You're meditating a lot of those 3 days. But over that 3 days, most people get a sense of that shaft of light. They realize what we call kensho. Kensho means seeing your true nature. It means seeing the reality of things without these lenses and filters and layers of dirt. So just 3 days or maybe 5 days or something like that doesn't take much. But what does take quite some time more is to clean the rest of the window. Or indeed, in the other metaphor, gathering together all the flour in the dough. Or, with Joshu's koan, cleaning the whole of the bowl and all the stuck bits of rice. You might say you really can't clean all of the rice. Well, I don't know. The Buddha seemed to get quite a long way, and there have been people down the centuries who got pretty much cleaned all the stuff. is possible. But if we fall into the trap of thinking that we're finished, that we've cleaned everything, then everything grinds to a halt, and we end up taking a fairly arrogant view of things. So there's another koan that we encounter. In Zen, we typically study about 500 or so koans in the syllabus. And all of these, as I say, are kind of little stories or vignettes or questions that help us to clarify and look at different dimensions of things. So a little bit further down the practice syllabus of the koans, you get this koan called "The Buffalo Passes the Window." And this centers around another teacher, Chinese teacher, named Joshu. And he said, "A buffalo passes by the window. The buffalo's head, the horns, and the forelegs all go past. But the tail, that doesn't pass." Sometimes it's written that the buffalo goes through the window, and his head and horns and all four legs go through the window, but the tail gets stuck. Why is that? Says Joshu. So that's the sort of direction you think, God, my God, how do I even start with that? Well, so here's another metaphor. Like the buffalo represents bits of us that we're practicing with, parts of our self, you could say. The buffalo's representing self, and the different parts of the buffalo representing different parts of ourselves that we come to terms with, we see. The major parts, he says, after we've been practicing for a while, go past the window, no problems. The head, huge. The horns, big. The four legs, big. The whole of the rest of the buffalo has managed to get through or past the window. But the tiny tail, that gets stuck. Why can't that get through? And sometimes it's like what seems like the smallest part snags up the whole process. The little bit of unacknowledged, emotion, memory, stuff, a bit of unacknowledged pain maybe, that's just underneath the rock, or maybe we feel really scared about lifting up the lid and it's just there. Maybe we worry that it might be absolutely enormous. It feels very small and insignificant, but actually if I lift the lid, oh my God, it's huge. That tiny little bit, the last piece. If we don't lift up the lid or, look at it, it can just get us completely stuck. Zen master Dogen, who was another famous Japanese master, a little bit later on in history, and he wrote a lot about some of these koans. He said, "When the Dharma does not fill your whole body and mind, you think it's already sufficient." When the Dharma does not fill your whole body and mind, so basically the Dharma is the teaching, when it's not quite filling every single that dimension of you, but you think you're done, you think it's sufficient, you think you've done it all. But when the Dharma does fill your whole body and mind, you know something is missing. That's what he says. When the Dharma does not fill your whole body and mind, you think it's already sufficient. So it's like, I haven't fully dived into it all, but I think I've done. But I haven't quite done it all. But then if you do dive in and fully inhabit all of the teaching, then you see what you're missing. You see the little tiny pieces of rice that are left over in the bowl. You see the tail that can't fit through. The tail represents keep going. We're never finished. The more you practice, the more you realise there's work to do. The more you realise there's more purification to be done. Now, a word of warning before we finish. All this can make us think that it's all about striving to deal with our stuff, to this future time when I have purified my being and I've cleaned my bowl and I've got my dough together and all this kind of stuff. But actually, that's only really one side of things. It's kind of movement forwards. The other side of things is a complete openness to here, being right here, being content with as we are right now. And that's possibly another talk. The difference between, are we moving forward in this practice or are we staying still? Maybe we'll talk about that next time. So I wondered if there's any resonances or thoughts or comments or anything that's been coming up as I've been talking there. Any questions? Please go ahead and just write in the chat. I'll be very interested to hear what you think. I always feel like all of us, the Insight Timer, it's quite difficult to make a community or to feel like we're part of a community. And one of the real ways in which we can feel in touch with each other is through just seeing each other in the chat. So we can't see each other, you could see me, but I can't see you. We can't see each other. Tells me that there are 14 people joining in right now. It'd be just nice to hear from you all and just feel like we're all joining this together, creating a practice community together where we're working with this stuff. It's not easy sometimes. But otherwise, we're going to move towards a meditation practice. Yeah. Suleiman, thanks very much. Yeah. The work is continuous, whether we realize it or not. Right. Exactly. Yeah, there might be periods of our life where things go a little bit quieter and more dormant, but there's something, hopefully there's still something simmering in the background. Sometimes it comes to a head and it's very, very energetic. Sometimes, so we go through those kind of phases. Absolutely, you're exactly right. Yeah. Kitty, yeah, feels never ending and that feels daunting. Well, in a way, so this comes to the last point that I was sort of mentioning there. So in some sense, there's this movement forwards. There's dealing with our stuff. There's cleaning the bowl. There's working with the dough. And there's seeing more and more of who we are and what needs dealing with. But then there's also this other side where actually the path forward isn't forwards. The path is actually coming to see how we can be right now. Like, we're not going anywhere. We're actually going here. And our path is more of just opening to this, being who we are, settling into this ease of right now, realizing that right now we have everything we need. So in a sense, there's a daunting about what we have to deal with, but also like settling into being right now. It's easy, right? Settling into who you are, just be who you are. Meg, often when it feels like things are figured out, some other challenge pops up. And that proves that you've not quite got things all figured out. Exactly. Yeah. The more we see, the more we realise. Yeah. Support to trust the path, Patricia. Absolutely. So I think Zen shows us that we are our own teacher. So some spiritual paths have a kind of guru figure where it's like, you tell me what to do, you're very wise, I will, take your advice. But actually Zen is more like, listen to yourself because you know what you need. Deep down, you know. And the more we listen, the more we can discern what is appropriate, what we need, and we can learn to trust ourselves. So the path, in that sense, Patricia, is our ourselves and our own trust of ourself. And we might start off with almost no trust, and gradually we come to see more clearly. And the real path comes from the belly, from the guts, from our being, not from thinking about it. And Kitty, so at some point the scales tip. Well, I think it does. I think the more we deal with stuff, the easier things get. The less caught up we are with all the worries and insecurities and the I don't know, all the ego boosting things we do, all the kind of suffering that we wind ourselves into and wind ourselves out of, that diminishes as we become more comfortable. I think it does. The scales do tip. Yeah. But I mean, don't take my word for it. See for yourself. Let's do a little bit of meditation practice now. So, coming into a comfortable sitting posture. Maybe you're already there. Sitting up comfortably tall. Do the crown of the head reaching upwards. And then bringing your chin down and in slightly. Imagining you're holding a ball under your chin. Thanks, Nancy. Lovely comment. Thank you. So we can let your eyes close, or you can keep them slightly open if you'd prefer. And then settling your body, relaxing, softening, allowing gravity to guide that sense of relaxation. We're sitting tall, and then around that, relaxing. Shoulders, hands, belly, softening your breath. And we're turning our attention inside. Now, how do we, in practice, wash our bowl? So it's all well and good saying that we have little stuck pieces of rice all around the outside. And Joshu says, well, then go and wash your bowl. But then, what does it look like? Well, actually, the reality is being right here, seeing who we are right now. And the more willing and open we are to just this moment, then the more open we are to seeing all the different dimensions of our being. We don't have to drag them out or dig them out. So what is this present moment for you? Maybe it's filled with the sensation of your breath. Maybe it's a whole load of chaotic thoughts pulling you this way and that way. Maybe it's an ache or a pain somewhere. Can you let yourself be this? And as I mentioned, in almost every other endeavour in life, the path takes us from here to over there. We gain skills or qualification or understanding, or it takes us to a new place. But in Zen, in meditation, the path is actually one of arriving here. It's one of seeing and coming to terms with whatever things are right now. That might be feeling a bit hot and sweaty, or a bit fidgety, or it might be a wide open spaciousness. Or a realization that what you said to your spouse earlier today was a bit hurtful. And whatever you notice on any level, we're doing our best not to judge. It's not bad, it's not good. We just see it. And when we see it without the judgment, this is the path of letting go. And as I'm quiet for a few minutes, see if you can just allow yourself to simply be who you are right now. And then as we come to the end of this short practice, maybe take a deeper breath and letting your body sway from side to side. Letting your eyes lift up when you're ready. Another way that is traditionally used to sort of focus our purification, in this particular way, is to use the precepts. And the precepts are a series of guidelines to help us to sort of, keep our morals on the straight and narrow. The first one, precept not to kill, not to steal, not to lie, not to abuse intoxicants, and not to abuse sexuality. So maybe those, and then there's a few more, but those 5, not to kill, steal, lie, abuse intoxicants or sexuality, you could probably take one of those and just say, okay, for this week, I'm just going to take one of those and see how does my life feel in alignment with that? Or how do I kind of explore one of those. That's very much this path of kind of dealing with some of our stuff, just if you like. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining today. We offer the merit of our practice today to all living beings. May they all be well. May they all be healthy and happy. May they all find liberation. Yeah, so we've been doing these talks on Wednesdays, sometimes Mondays, so do feel free to come along again another time. Also, you can offer a donation in exchange for today's session, so it's very easy. You can just click the donate button. Be very welcome. So otherwise, thanks so much, everyone, and I wish you a very lovely the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Lisa. And Patricia, lovely. Thanks for coming along. Yeah, Christiane, nice to see you again. We'll see you next time.